DM Bobby D here, presenting Craven's Keep Boilgut's Throne, a first level adventure featuring Finnegan Finn Hawk, which is a human druid played by Bo. We got 7 Snakes, which is a Tabaxi monk played by Nate. And we've got Obi Guildshire, which is a human paladin played by Devin. We've got Sven, a Minotaur barbarian played by Steve. I would like to give credit to Craven's Keep for creating this adventure for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. This is the story of Finnegan Finn Hawk, a gambling human druid down on his luck. Sven, the Minotaur barbarian, working as a bouncer in a ruddy tavern. 7 Snakes, a Tabaxi monk, seeking the true way. And a human paladin of Helm, wishing to right wrongs and serve humanity. This adventure starts off in a glass slipper tavern at a poker table. Seated there, motley crew if you've ever seen one. There's a round man with a black goatee and a plaid shirt that is almost bursting at the seams. A bedraggled human man dressed in black, sporting a worn cowboy hat with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and what appears to be a cat man, Tabaxi, dressed in a loose robe with his arms and legs wrapped in cloth wraps, and a large horned man of great girth that is obviously a minotaur. About this time, the mayor of the place comes walking up with a human paladin at her side. She's the mayor of this small town of Frisbee. She approaches the table. "Hello, my name is Helena Crump, and we need your help. A paladin of Helm suggested I look for some capable-looking strangers to join him in helping us. We are in dire need of help. The lake outside our town, that our town depends on, has slowly become undrinkable over the past month. I don't know if you've noticed, but its waters have turned green and are highly acidic. All attempts by our clerics to remove or discover the cause of this blight have failed. We cannot pay much, but we are able to provide some restitution. Please consider helping us, as we are desperate." The big-bellied human gets to his feet and says, "I ain't gonna be able to help, as I got a family to feed," as he heads for the door. The other 3 agree to help. A human in chainmail approaches and says, "Thank Helm for you, gentlemen. My name is Obi Guildshire, Paladin of Helm, Protector of the Weak. Who may I have the pleasure of adventuring with?" The man, with his face half shrouded by his cowboy hat, takes a long drag of his cig, tips his hat, and says, "Finnegan Hawk here, but you can call me Finn. My partners here are Sven the Barbarian and 7 the Monk. Myself, I'm a druid, and I am highly concerned about the lake." "Yeah, that is not natural, and it pisses me off," if Sven pops up. Itching for adventure, 7 Snakes just nods his head and flicks his tail. The next morning, the motley crew decides to first check out a tributary of the large lake. They follow a faint trail, and as they approach it, there is something not right about the lake's water. They are green and fuming a light mist. Off down the bank in the distance, they see a figure pouring something into the lake from a container. 7 sprints towards the figure. As soon as the party approaches, the goblin he tries to run into the forest. He is a goblin. 7 steps in the way. Sven charges up and connects with his horn, throwing the goblin in the air. Dead on impact, the goblin's body splashes into the lake with a hiss as acid begins to destroy the corpse. "Which way was he heading?" Finn says as he finally catches up. "He's headed to the bottom of the lake now," scoffs Sven with a chuckle. Ignoring Sven's meager attempt at humor, 7 points towards a dirt road leading north into the forest. It is overgrown and apparently hasn't been used in some time. Hobie says, "That's the direction towards the main part of the lake." Hobie led the party up the road. After about 2 leagues, and the surrounding trees began to be about 15 foot high, but they appear petrified. Further up the dirt road is the remains of a small fishing village on another lake. It's the main lake. A crumbling mortar and stone wall, about 10 feet high, flanks the remains of an old timber gate lying smashed in the road. 2 crooked wooden towers rise about 20 foot tall. This small ruin of a village seems mostly surrounded by green fuming lake water on both sides. Entering the village, they see a barn to the left and a building with a tower to the right. All appears quiet until an arrow from the tower pings off Hobie's armor, and a cry of alarm comes from atop the tower. Hobie ran and began climbing the tower walls. Sven and 7 ran towards the tower, but saw a goblin in the weeds south of the tower and ran there instead. Finn scanned what he could see of the rest of the town and saw a goblin run from the steps of another building into the barn. Another arrow from the top of the tower struck Hobie as he was climbing the tower. The goblin with Sven and 7 tried to defend itself, but was vastly outgunned. Finn called to Sven and 7 about the barn. 7's speed as a monk and cat-like reflexes allowed him to run to the barn and enter it. As soon as he entered the barn, he narrowly dodged an arrow from the goblin he saw stabled with open doors as the goblin and the 2 goblins across the room. In the stalls were 2 giant rats. Sven lowered his massive head and rammed the old barn doors, smashing them from their frames. Meanwhile, as Hobie climbed over the edge of the tower, he saw the goblin exiting through a trap door in the ceiling. Finn maintained watch in the middle of the road while his friends dispatched the goblins. In the barn, 7 charged the goblin, and using his claws, quickly dispatched one goblin before he could even draw his scimitar. Sven was attacked by the giant rats as both tried to swarm him. He took one out with his massive battle axe, while 7 killed the other one with elite claw. bared. The other goblin decided to surrender. Sven quickly grabbed his rope and tied him up. Hobie opened the trapdoor and scrambled down the ladder, only to be attacked by the goblin when he reached the bottom. Finn saw that the wall of the building attached to the tower was a pile of rubble and clambered over it to see Obi battling the goblin, which had moved from the base of the tower into the building attached to it. Upon seeing he was outnumbered, the goblin charged at Finn, only to be dropped by Obi from behind. Finally leaving the barn, Sven and Seven took their goblin and met Finn and Obi out in the road. Obi questioned the goblin in the goblin's language. Finn stepped out of the rubble, back out into the road with everybody else, since he couldn't understand goblin. To the north, on the steps of a nearby building, he spied another goblin leaning back in a rickety chair, apparently asleep. Finn muttered some magic words, reached into his pouch, and produced a few copper pieces, which he enchanted, and threw one at the goblin. It hit the chair, breaking it and awakening the goblin. He scrambled to his feet and took off north up the road, yelling "Invaders, invaders!" in the goblin language. And Obi was talking to the tied-up goblin. Obi says, "He says to the north, at the edge of the lake, is a large house where their leader, Boilgut, stays. He said Boilgut creates the acidic bile and vomits it into vats to be dumped in the area lakes." Finn unties the goblin and tells him to run south. If he ever sees him again, he will kill him. The goblin might not understand him fully, but understands enough to take running south out of town. "Let's quickly check the rest of these buildings and go to the head honcho's place. Finally, put an end to this," Sven said. Finding no more enemies left, the party proceeded north through the petrified forest, following the old road. After about a 10-minute walk, they came to a small peninsula of land jutting out into the acrid lake. There was a large rickety shack teetering on the edge of the lake. Upon approaching the shack, they hear something emerge from the water on each side of them, as they see 3 small blobs of green ooze breach the lake and begin slithering towards them. Obi ran to attack the one to the northwest. Seven approached the one to the northeast, and Sven charged the one to the west. Finn produced another magic copper piece and flung it at the ooze by Obi. After a couple rounds, the party dispatched the oozes and proceeded to approach the shack, left behind piles of goo. There were double doors there at the shack, but Seven decided, let's look in the windows. So he went over to a room and looked in, and he suggested climbing into one of the windows. One they found leading to what appeared to be an abandoned storeroom. Only a few dusty crates and a pile of rotted lumber. So the party climbs in the window. There is a door that goes to the north, and Obi listens and hears nothing. Opening it, they see what appears to be an empty sleeping quarters. There is a low-burning brazier, 3 tattered sleeping pallets, and a pile of rotting straw. And there's a door leading to the east. Obi went to the only exit door to the east and opened it to find a dark room. Since Seven and Finn had dark vision, they can see inside the room. They see a goblin surrounded by 3 oozes. The goblin is furiously writing on the wooden floor with charcoal, muttering to himself. There are scribblings on almost every surface in the room. Seven charged the goblin, while Finn threw another magic copper piece, hitting one of the oozes. Sven charged into the darkness, wildly swinging his battle axe, but connecting with nothing. Obi also entered the darkness, but a bit more cautiously than Sven. One of the oozes blocked off Seven as the goblin escaped through a door on the far side of the room. While battling the oozes, the party found out the hard way that they do acid damage. Sven lit a torch and handed it to the paladin and charged through the far door where Finn told him where the goblin went. As he burst through the door, his eyes began to adjust to the pale green glow coming from the windows. He hurries through the room and crashes through the only other door he sees. As the rest of the party slowly follows, they wrinkle their noses as a thick pungent smell burns their noses. 2 large copper vats stand in the corner across from a work table covered in glass bottles. Finn noticed the vats contain green, stinky bile. Seven and Obi exit the door, smashed, to see a room with a door in each wall. The one directly across the room is in shadows, with Sven standing in the doorway, looking back and forth. In the room Sven stands in is a 5-foot platform with a short wooden ladder surrounding a warped copper vat. Seeing no enemies, he turns and bursts into the adjoining room. Obi goes to the far door and listens before opening it, thinking that's the only way the guy could escape. Seven goes into the vat room as Finn looks on, smoking his cig, seeing what he can see. Obi opens the door to see a long chamber with its floors covered in uncured furs as rugs. Across the room, he sees a door partially open and charges in, ignoring the rest of the room. As Obi is charging, an arrow comes from the room with the partially open door, striking him in his shoulder, but not stopping him. Bursting through the door, Obi strikes the goblin, beheading him in one blow. Finding no foes in his room, Sven, in a blind rage, charges across the room into the room Obi entered, and passing Obi, sees another 2 goblins at the far end of the room and charges them. Seven cautiously enters the room the other 2 crossed, ignored, and beholds a terrible sight. 2 braziers sit in front of a large section of the missing floor to the north. A rickety wooden bridge leads to a squat throne on which an overweight goblin, riddled with hideous goiter-like boils, sits. A crown of scrap metal perched atop his head. A shock-right, oversized giant rat growls lowly and menacingly at his side. The swollen goblin arises. You dare defy the Blessed One, the Goblin Kid? I, Boilgut, will dissolve you in the flood of my divine judgment. Seven charges across the bridge and launches himself at the large goblin, raking with his claws with a flurry of blows. Hearing the large goblin, Finn enters and casts magic stone on 3 more coins. Obi returns to the large room and can't believe he ran through this room without noticing the boss goblin. Sven charged across his room, impaling 1 goblin on his horns and beheading the other one with his battle axe. A large giant rat jumps up from under a pile of blankets, jumps on him, begins sinking his large, nasty teeth into Sven's bovine flesh. As Seven battled Boilgut, his pet rat Shredder charged down the ramp to leap on Obi. Finn let loose with a magic stone, injuring Shredder. Sven tossed the giant rat on him and cleaved it with his battle axe as his rage subsided. Boilgut pushed Seven over the rails of the platform they were fighting on and rushed down the ramp to engage the others. Seven didn't fall into the green fuming water as his cat claws sank into the wood of the railing, keeping him from falling. In the other room, Sven began rooting around in the goblin's belongings, oblivious to what was going on in the other room. Obi swung his longsword at Shredder, but missed horribly, tripping and falling prone. "Damn it!" he exclaimed. As Shredder bared his fangs and prepared to rip out Obi's throat, he was hit in the head with a magic coin from Finn, collapsing. His dead rat body fell upon the prone Obi, blood squirting on him. Seeing his rat dead, Boilgut ran past Finn, exiting the room that the party entered. As he disengaged, Seven scrambled back over the railing, leapt down the ramp after Boilgut, using his monk-like speed. Obi wiped the rat blood off his face as he got to his feet and got his bearings, saying a quick prayer to Helm. Sven finally re-entered the large room as Finn exclaimed, "He went that way," pointing at the open door. Boilgut had charged through the adjoining room straight into the next room and dove through the open window into the green, murky lake. On his tail were Seven and Sven, followed by Finn brandishing his last magic coin. The acidic water didn't seem to affect Boilgut as he began swimming away. Seven and Sven could only stand at the window and watch him in his escape. But Finn came up and let loose his final magic coin, hitting Boilgut squarely in the back of his head. He immediately stopped swimming and his dead body floated in the acidic lake. Obi wandered into the room. "Did you get him?" "You bet we did," Seven exclaimed, while Finn rolled his eyes and lit another cig, taking a deep drag. Meanwhile, Sven tied the end of his rope to his grappling hook. "Never thought we'd need this." He threw it and began hauling Boilgut's dead body back into the window. He pulled the body into the room while Seven searched the body. He found 2 vials of green liquid and 1 of a black liquid. Seven exclaimed, "Got one here. You should taste it and see what it does." Finn chuckled. Now, Sven looked confused, and Seven stowed them in his pack. Obi was giving last rites over Boilgut's body, praying to Helm. Finn, the druid, said, "Now that no more of this crap will get poured into the lake, it will heal itself and should return to normal within about a week." Seven said, "Follow me. I believe I saw another ramp leading to a locked door back by the throne." When they got back there, Seven began searching the throne, while Obi approached the sturdy door with the large rusty lock. Finn had pulled a key from around the neck of Boilgut and said, "Here, I'll unlock it." Sven said, "I've got a better way," as he lowered his horns and charged the door, knocking it into splinters. Obi entered to find 2 empty wooden casks and a pile of coins. "You never can have too many coins," piped up Finn. Finding nothing of value in his search of the throne, Seven said, "Let's get back to town. I need a bath and a good meal." The trek back to town was uneventful, and the mayor was elevated to hear their story. She handed Obi a sack of coins, thanked the party profusely. Obi split up the 100 gold pieces and headed towards the shrine to tithe to Helm. The other three pocketed their coins and headed towards the tavern and inn. "We made a pretty good team back there," Sven said. "Yeah, we need to do it again sometime," Seven piped in. As they entered the tavern, they were accosted by joyful townsfolk, clamoring to buy them ale. "Our heroes!" one exclaimed. "Do you guys have a name?" asked another. "Just call us the Fearless Four, the bane of all destroyers of nature," said Finn. The end. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like and subscribe, and share it, please. There will be more. Thank you.